get in the same lane as these granola munchers here. You guys want to race? I win. Granola munching, spandex wearing. Alright, I'm not Snowcat. I might be on a KTM, but I am not Snowcat. So I'm gonna shut my mouth. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Is the Duke 690 a starter bike? Or can it be a starter bike? And in my opinion, 100% yes, but that is because that's what I started on. Although I did not start on this specific bike, I started on a 2014 Duke 690, and I learned so much from that bike. I had a 2004 BMW 325 coupe that I traded for my first 690, and it began a life of absolute joy. I never thought that I would enjoy motorcycles as much as I do now at this point. I remember the very first time that I rode it, I had already put 2,000 miles on a friend's Ninja 300, so I wasn't 100% new to bike life. You know, I got the basics down, I got good at cornering on the 300. I basically got comfortable on my buddy's 2014 Ninja 300 before I ever even got my bike, but my 690 was my first 600cc bike, you know, something with a little more power, more torque. And I think that even if I hadn't have been fortunate enough to have been able to put all those miles on my buddy's bike, I still would have been able to start on this bike. But I remember the first time that I got on it, I was like, whoa, like this feels like I'm sitting on a bar stool. Like literally, it feels like you're sitting on a bar stool. And I remember being so used to the angled bars of the little sport bike that when I got on this thing with the wide bars, it literally felt like my hands were out here like this. Is exactly what it felt like. I remember the first time I got the 690 out into the corners, and it just felt incredible. Like my comfort zone on the 690, the amount I was able to push the bike comfortably compared to the 300 was just phenomenal. You know, like really getting down in the corners on the 300 took a lot more confidence than it did on this bike. And I remember that allowed me to really push myself and critique the way that I rode. It was also a lot easier to do it on my 690 and took a lot less time to get good than it did on the little Ninja 300. I also had way more fun on the 690 than I did on the 300. For one, because of power. For two, because of ease of enjoyment, you know, like really getting into the corners and stuff. It was a lot more enjoyable just because it was so much more easy, I guess you could say. When it comes to beginner bikes, it's not necessarily about the bike itself as much as it is about the person, but when it does come to the bike, I feel like if the bike can teach you more while you're comfortable, it's going to benefit you a lot more than the 300 would, and it will also give you a lot more room to grow compared to the 300. And so, with that being said, I'd highly suggest a KTM Duke 690. And don't buy a new one, pick up a used one, pick up an old one, pick up a 2014, 2013. It's not always about having the best bike to begin with. I actually learned that the hard way. I was very controlled in learned a lot on my first two bikes. I went from the 690 and I traded the 690 in for an R6. I learned a ton about cornering, a ton about the power band, a lot about working on motorcycles on my R6. But I also got very, very comfortable on my R6 very quick. It's almost dangerously quick on those type of bikes, you know. You just get used to going so fast, and it literally just becomes a part of your everyday life. You're like, oh man, I got to work today in 25-30 minutes, you know, and normally in a car it would have took me almost an hour and a half. And it just becomes like the norm. And I think it's super important to stray away from that as much as you possibly can and really limit yourself and the way that you ride. Kind of back to what I was talking about self-control. I got a FZ10 after my R6. At the end of the year I traded my R6 in and got an FZ10. Did not pay cash for it. I traded my bike in and I was paying off the rest monthly. And so the bike cost me $480 a month, even after the R6 was traded in. And insurance on that bike cost me $560 a month, which luckily I only had to pay for 1 month. Every little bit of self-control that I had on my R6, I did not have on my FZ10. For some reason, it was basically like going back to my Duke with twice as much power. You know, with the upright seating position, it gives you a lot of confidence. The TCS and the ABS on the FZ10 was just phenomenal. The cruise control, the brutal sheer power that bike had was just, it was so satisfying that I literally could not go slow anywhere that I rode. I had the bike for 3.5 weeks and I put 4,100 miles on it. And I guarantee you that 3,500 miles of those were me flying. I mean, way past my comfort zone, and it was the rush that it gave me and the adrenaline that it gave me was just absolutely addicting, and I had absolutely no self-control over it whatsoever. I ended up totaling it one night, which I actually have on film. I will be releasing the video on that as soon as the channel hits 10,000 views in total. That brings me back to what I was talking about earlier, is self-control. Self-control is something that you absolutely have to have if you are going to stay alive on a bike, because there's so much room for error, there's so much room for cockiness, I guess is what you could say. You know, you're on a bike, you could beat a lot of things on the road. You can get places very fast, you can get through traffic very fast. It's just, it's dangerous, and if you don't have the mental self-control, it's just not a good combination. Another thing that's absolutely amazing about this bike is how lightweight it is, and how these upright bars, these wide bars, just make it incredible in corners. It's just brutal. And not only is it super light, it's got enough power to thrust you out. But you can push your skill level so far on this bike, and I really think that's why it's a great starter bike. See that? It just flicks back and forth like a dream, dude. I forgot to mention this. Another absolutely phenomenal thing, like one of my favorite things about this bike, is the hydraulic clutch. Especially if you gotta sit in some traffic. Your hand will never get tired of going like that. Oh wow. Oh wow. Alright, that was braking this bike to the absolute max. I completely forgot about this stop sign, but I just basically smashed the brakes, and I didn't slip and slide at all due to the ABS. So ABS is a very, very great option to have on this bike, especially if you're beginning or if you're just an idiot like me. Yeah, I don't know if I've covered enough stuff to really make a topic video on if this bike is a good starter bike or not. I'll do what I can, but if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. This is going to conclude the Topic Tuesday. I'm going to rip the rest of these back roads home and kind of focus on the road a little bit more than trying to talk to you guys. So enjoy this time lapse to end this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Great Laker out. I got 3 backfires. That's the first time I've ever gotten backfires out of upshifts, and that sounds absolutely phenomenal. God, that was awesome. I wish my bike did that every time. There it is.